Hi everybody, Ben Fung here again. Video blogging here for Daddy in the Raw, my dad blog, the real life of a work-at-home dad. My wife just pointed out to me that come Monday last year was a critical, and I mean critical point in our time, in this work-at-home journey. And just going back a little bit further, I tagged this vlog as a Throwback Thursday and how we got here. And it's been a while. Actually, come May, it'll be 2 years. I know when I opened up this blog, I started writing about it. It was 18 months in. That's what my intro video says. But it's effectively going to be 2 years since I've been working at home in some respect or regard or another. And it's been crazy. And I wouldn't have given it up for anything. I still. I'm still committed to this path, and it's amazing what has happened. So, effective May-ish of 2014, that's when I stopped my traditional roles as a physical therapist. A little backdrop on that in case we're getting to know each other. What had happened was, I accelerated up the career path in healthcare a little bit, maybe too fast. I was getting an MBA while I was working full time. I took a promotion to a director level. And then, my son came around. And just things were out of balance. It was just a little bit too much to do that in a healthy way that I felt was, balanced in the way I felt I needed to have it balanced. And if you want to kind of hear more thoughts about my thoughts on balance, you can go to my, my professional blog at drbenfung.org, where I have a little video on vertical balance. And it's kind of an entrepreneurial mindset of how you can stack things in your life on top of themselves rather than balancing them out on a plate. To do things three-dimensionally and vertically rather than, on a flat surface that is more likely to have imbalance because, well, you're trying to fit a three-dimensional life into a two-dimensional object. But, back on course, you're looking back, it was February, and so effectively I've been home for 10 months. Much of that working from home, desperately trying to find however we can make this work, finishing up my MBA courses because I only had so much of a window of time to actually get that done. And if I didn't get it done, then it would have been kind of all for naught. And a lot of the sacrifices that we took leading up to even getting into the MBA program would have been all for naught. And I just had this kind of this life, almost existential moment where I was like, wow, like, did I make a mistake? Was it even worth it? In February, was only going to be 2 months away from my graduation, which was in April. And usually around that time, MBA candidates start looking at internships and start looking at, associate level stuff into, just, strict business, whether it's consulting or corporate level stuff. This is when you have to make your move. And so I tried. And I even tried as early as January and, did everything I could. I mean, I must have applied to well over 500 different types of positions. It was insane. And, there was very, very little feedback, which is something else that I'm actually working on as another project in my entrepreneurial portfolio. But, the situation was this, I finally got a really legitimate hit with probably one of the world's best companies in its regard in the service and entertainment industry, and something I felt very, very passionate about. For months, I was investing my time into developing internal relationships with them to get kind of an in and to qualify myself. And it was so interesting because leading up to that, I felt so desperate to make the jump into formal business versus healthcare business that I devaluated myself terribly. I mean, let's keep in mind, I had made I had reached a six-figure job situation. And quit that. I was at a directorial management level, quit that. I had a doctorate with honors, right? I was getting a master's, which I would graduate with honors. And I had I had bachelor degrees, undergraduate work done in bioengineering, at, UCSD and psychology. And bioengineering at UCSD is one of the top in the world. And, on paper, and which is how a lot of the world works at the time, and still even now, on paper, the experience and all that stuff really added up well, but it just wasn't matching for whatever reason. Stars weren't aligned, fates, God didn't want it that way, whatever you attribute it to. And I attributed it to that was, it wasn't meant for me to devaluate myself at the highest level of my training, experience, credentialing, personal branding, all that stuff. I was at the height of it. And I was so desperate just because of how life took that turn, and just the grind of not knowing what's going to be at the, down the pipe, and what the future is going to hold. And that's pretty normal when you're in those stages. And I was really lost. I was truly lost. We were in very serious plannings and discussions of moving my family across the country, and taking it would have been like a 85% pay cut, something like that, at an internship level, management role, hopefully just to get into that particular corporation. And eventually, I was actually rejected, and I was like, how is that possible? Like, I must be the best qualified, intern candidate possible, just from, such well-reputed, institutions, and the degree, and, just the honors category, all that kind of stuff. But here's the thing: immediately when I got the email that I was rejected, I was so at peace. I was done. I was almost alleviated. I was joyful. Actually, it was my wife that had an issue with it. She was kind of personally going, what? Like, how is that possible? How could you possibly have been rejected after laying down so much foundation in relationships with that particular corporation? And I think, simple as it is, I was not meant to go back to an intern level. And that almost sounds silly. I'm saying it right now, and it sounds silly to even think about it. But everyone comes into a point in life where you start to second guess yourself in one way or another, right? You second guess yourself because, it's that imposter syndrome. Like, am I really that good? Am I really that worth it? Am I just kind of puffed up and putting on a show, and I'm just good at putting on a show? And I go through that, still, because I am, honest with myself, and I'm honest with the people I work with and work for and serve. And I want to make sure that I present the very best of myself for their benefit, right? Because that's just the kind of, work ethic that I like to bring to the table. And, I realized that, I didn't need to intern anywhere to be better anymore. I didn't need to intern to breach out of clinical management. I didn't need to intern for any of that. What I needed to do was to do it for myself. I think I saw a quote that's been circulating in a meme form throughout social media this last couple of weeks. An entrepreneur rather is someone who rather works 24 hours for themselves a day than to work 1 hour for anybody else. And I've been learning a lot about that. My background, if you know me from my kettlebell therapy days and my corporate days, I have a very formal training in basically everything I do. Bioengineering, formal training; psychology, formal training; doctorate in physical therapy, formal training; and MBA, Masters of Business Administration, formal training. And those formal training environments teach you to take, calculated risks, but typically lower valence risks, right? It doesn't have that much to do with startup companies or being an entrepreneur, going to business for yourself, starting something from nothing. It has to do with managing large, scope systems, large spectrum systems at very complex, high-level organizations. And while those are great skills, you also need to have some of that grit to deal with the early stuff. And so we were looking back on the calendar and going, wow, like a year ago today, come Monday, we could have possibly made that decision to move across the country, basically just like, pick up, it would have almost been like moving to another country, like sell everything we have, start absolutely from nothing, completely devaluate what, I could otherwise bring to the table, both on a monetary form and as well as a professional development form. Start below entry level, right? Start at internship level while I have 2 graduate degrees. And I'm very glad that it happened, because I needed to learn that for myself, right? I needed to learn for myself, once again, what I was worth. And I speak about this a lot in my professional venues, that entry level, healthcare professional, especially the physical therapist, right? Because that's my background, doctor of physical therapy. These doctors, these clinicians, these providers need to not devalue themselves nor devalue each other. And DPTs are the lowest paid doctoring profession in healthcare. And I think a lot of it has to do with the way our profession developed, and a lot of it has to do with devaluating the self-denigration, and keep ourselves honest and make sure that we're, we are who we say we are. We're not fluffed up, but also devaluating each other because, we have a critical culture. And it's for the benefit, of course, for our customers, for our patients, But I feel that in many ways it stunts our growth, and it may actually hurt the people we serve, and ultimately ourselves. And if we keep hurting ourselves, we can't serve anybody well. So, all to say, looking back, so many things in life happen for a reason, right? I vlogged a little bit, I think maybe last week or the week before, about growing up, bullied, and also having ADHD and how I've managed it. Actually, I've learned to manage it through some pediatric physical therapy and neurologic development type theories. And I mean, they're working theories, proven or not, supported or not, they seem to have worked. And they're very well received in my international ADHD columns, and all these various things that we go through in life. And you look back and you realize, even though it's 2020 vision, that there was a reason for that, there was a purpose for that. And I'm very, very glad that I stuck to my guns. Right now that I'm a partner at a startup media company, UpDoc Media. It's the first of its kind, basically, in the space of physical therapy, healthcare business, of a physical therapy media development company and digital marketing company that, basically for PTs by PTs, and for the benefit of PTs, with that perspective, that same like-minded perspective of your co-professional, rather than, like an agency that doesn't understand you. And it takes a leap of faith. A lot of stuff in life requires, leap of faith, and sometimes it's calculated leaps of faith. But those are leaps you have to take, right? And I think might have been the New York Times, or it could have been BuzzFeed, but they did, they do these videos from time to time, what do you regret most in life? And people write on a chalkboard, or you have interviews, and usually it's what? You regret not doing something. You don't ever regret something that you've done, because you already did it, right? You live with that. Those are your consequences, your problems, and most people rather live with those of their own than somebody else's. But what you do end up regretting is not taking those chances, right? Not taking the dive, not taking the plunge, not taking the risks, because you can't ever get that back, right? That's a lost opportunity. Even a failed opportunity is better than a lost one. So, looking back, working at home, love it. I plan on doing this for as long as I possibly can. I never want to give this up, if I can make it happen, and things are in play that looks like it can. And I don't plan on failing on this one. This one seems to be doing very, very well. I'm partnered with, the best people I know. And that's actually a relationship tip. And from a career advice standpoint is, you got to take that risk. I'm working from home. This is a risk. I don't make no mistake. There were definitely financial times where I'm thinking, ooh, we may not make this. At the same time, I rather go through that kind of stress and know 5 years from now, even 5 months from now, that I got all this concentrated time with my family, with my wife, with my kid who's growing up so fast in these precious early stages, that I got all this value, this gem of a life experience now, than some stability and me and him not being as close as we are, that kind of stuff, the things that you can never get back, and I'm not advocating every single one of you out there that is watching this either live or in replay, that you go out there and quit everything and start working from home. No, I'm saying that you need to live out your life for maximum value and the things that you value, per my vertical balance thing that I had on drbenfeng.org. And make sure you maximize your value now just as much as your value shall be later, because at the same time, we really don't know what that's going to be. So, working from home is tough, but it's doable. And I think for the most part, if you have the right type of skill sets and the right type of relationships and the right value that you can bring customers, you can do that. And it doesn't mean that you have to do it as an entrepreneur. There's actually more and more gig-based, economic ecosystems and structures that are developing. And I think that's actually going to push through in the millennial economy. And in terms of, if you're part of a kind of a corporate, staggered or linear structure, stick to your guns and take some risks, apply for promotions, perhaps outside of your organization. That's okay. It's okay to jump around. In fact, you hear me say this all the time. People that move around and move up every 2 years stand to gain 50%, upwards of 50% in raise or, lateral transfer value elevation than if you just stuck there, right? So if you stuck at a company for say 4 years, you've lost out on potentially, doubling your salary from when you started. And that certainly held true for me. I was severely lowballed in my first job, just because of the job market and just me not knowing any better as a new graduate. I just took the first thing ever. I was like, I just got to get paid. But then, I left that situation with, nearly, what was that, like 3 to 5 years later. So nearly I think 45% raise. I was making 6 figures when I was only, making 5 before, like mid fives. So, something to think about. I know this is Blab, isn't it? I'm recording this on blab.im, so it's meant for a little bit of rambling. But I just wanted to kind of think back on it and just realize that, those final lessons, looking at a year back and kind of thinking forward, what am I going to learn this year? Right. I think this year, is going to be that year where hard work pays off. And, it always does, so long as you're working in the right direction. So that's all I have. Again, I'm Ben. I'm Daddy in the Raw. This is the real life of a work-at-home dad, giving you a vulnerable, transparent, and raw look at what it is, despite it all, and throwing down that pride and that title, and just hoping that my story can turn into our stories that can help empower each other to do what we do and be with what we want to do most and the people we love most for as much of our lives as we can. So, all right, that's it. Talk to you later.